Look at this chart comparing the most valuable companies on Earth. If you take Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Saudi Aramco and combine their total market value into one stack, they still fall short of a single column representing a 400-year-old Dutch company at its peak. Adjusted for inflation, usually picture names like Rockefeller or Rothschild. Yet the creators of the world's first corporation, the first stock exchange, and the very first initial public offering remain largely anonymous to the modern public. To understand how they built this empire, we go back to 1580. The Dutch Republic was fighting a bitter war for independence against Spain, and then Spain absorbed Portugal. Overnight, the Dutch were staring down a merged, globally armed Catholic superpower that controlled territories across Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Standard warfare was futile against that kind of scale. If the Dutch tried to fight ship for ship on a traditional battlefield, they would lose. To survive, they needed to invent an entirely different kind of weapon. They turned to private capital. Watching this crisis unfold was the House of Orange. They were a prominent dynasty, and they carried all the prestige of nobility. But they lacked the two things that typically guaranteed survival in the 16th century: a recognized throne and the feudal wealth needed to mine gold or silver for a war effort. They found themselves squeezed. On one side, a hostile Spanish superpower wanted them extinguished. On the other, the wealthy merchant elites of Amsterdam wanted tighter, republican control over the country. The House of Orange had to either fade into irrelevance or find a way to adapt to a system where they held almost no leverage. Their solution was a complete pivot. They realized they could no longer rely on inherited land or the old ways of feudal power. Instead, they tied their future to the merchants, actively helping to bankroll the new trading fleets. This maneuver bypassed the crown entirely. For the first time, a ruling dynasty secured its political authority and strategic leverage not through divine right or taxation, but by anchoring themselves directly to the financial market. That market officially materialized in 1602. The Dutch consolidated several private trading fleets into a single entity, the VOC, or the Dutch East India Company. To fund it, they opened their doors to ordinary citizens, launching the world's first initial public offering. Asking the public to fund global exploration was risky. Ships routinely sank and trade routes collapsed. To convince people to hand over their savings, the Dutch created a legal protection called limited liability. If a voyage failed, investors only lost the specific money they had put in. Their personal properties and family savings were legally protected from the company's debts. That safety net removed the fear of total ruin. Capital flooded in. The VOC printed actual share certificates that could be bought and sold freely, birthing the first secondary stock market. Speculation ran wild, and shares surged tenfold in value as investors scrambled to get a piece of the profits. By severing the creation of wealth from noble titles and state taxes, the VOC built an economic engine fueled entirely by the public. It was a system that could scale, drawing on the collective savings of thousands of ordinary citizens. Flush with capital, the VOC transitioned into a paramilitary state, fielding its own 10,000-man private army. It stopped behaving like a merchant company and began operating with the authority of a king. The company expanded its imperial footprint from the Persian Gulf to Japan. Under a charter that granted royal powers, the VOC minted its own currency, signed international treaties, and captured foreign territories. They functioned as a sovereign nation in their own right. Behind the massive dividends flowing back to Amsterdam lay a brutal reality. The company enforced its trade monopolies through extreme violence and forced labor. In places like Batavia and the Banda Islands, they nearly exterminated indigenous populations, replacing them with settlers and enslaved survivors to secure spice production. The VOC was a machine of economic warfare. The wealth that built modern capitalism was inextricably tied to state-sanctioned bloodshed, proving that a corporation could wield the violent power of an empire. This fusion of capital and state power spread to England in 1688. William of Orange sailed across the English Channel to take the British throne, importing a Dutch mindset that merged financial markets with governance. Under William's rule, the English legally adopted Dutch financial innovations. They established the Bank of England, introduced government bonds, and funded their military campaigns through public credit markets. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, in 1624, the Dutch West India Company founded New Amsterdam at Manhattan's southern tip. This layout was designed entirely around commerce. Its organized street grids and legal frameworks for credit contracts laid the groundwork for a massive financial hub. When the British took over in 1664 and renamed the city New York, they left the underlying infrastructure intact. The Dutch commercial habits worked so well that the British simply absorbed them, embedding the DNA of modern Wall Street into the New World. But even a machine this powerful had limits. By the late 1700s, the VOC was collapsing under the weight of its own military bloat. Rising defense costs and rampant corruption hollowed the company out from the inside, leading the Dutch government to officially nationalize it in 1796. Though the charter expired in 1796, the underlying financial systems proved resilient. They evolved through the following centuries, supporting the 1907 merger that created Royal Dutch Shell and the rise of ING. Today, that same infrastructure makes the Netherlands a $4.3 trillion magnet for global capital, outpunching its small population on the world stage. And the House of Orange-Nassau still reigns. While their royal title is officially ceremonial today, the family maintains deep, quiet ties to Dutch industry, holding substantial stakes in modern giants like Royal Dutch Shell. The VOC's true legacy is the blueprint of the modern multinational corporation. They proved that if you design a system where trade, legal protection, and state power move in unison, the resulting entity can outlast any single monarch. When the old feudal orders fell, sovereign power didn't vanish. It simply migrated. It moved out of the palaces and into the boardrooms, backed by permanent shares and international treaties. If modern financial markets now hold the kind of geopolitical influence that was once strictly reserved for kings and queens, it leaves us with a critical question about how the world is governed today. In the age of global capital, the crown hasn't disappeared. It has just become invisible. And subscribe for more deep dives into the systems that run our